And we are back. And before we are back on Talkback.
Yeah, that's right.
By the way, before we even get started, I want to take a moment to say thank you to Jason Herndon and the good folks over at Double Front. They were good for their word. They brought by a bunch of chicken yesterday. And oh, was it good. So just so you know. All right. Yeah, that was their gift to us, and we appreciate it very, very much. Okay, what are we talking about, Don? What do you got there?
Well, I got all these tickets to give away today.
Yeah, we have men's basketball tournament tickets. Is that right?
But I am a little stunned because this happens Thursday, March 12th.
Right.
And this one happens Thursday, March 13th. And unless,
whoa,
someone has a flux or flux capacitor and can change time, I don't know. I assume both of these are tonight.
Well, let's take a look here. Let's see what it says here.
This is the BCS semifinal game.
This is quarterfinal, Northern Colorado versus Northern Arizona. We have two of these.
And that's tonight.
Yeah. And then this one is, I see. This is the semifinals, which is coming up on
Friday. Or Thursday the 13th.
Yeah, Thursday the 13th. And that's to be announced because of their,
okay, gotcha.
The winners of each game will be playing in the semifinals.
Aha. Yeah. Well, I have those to give away. I have two of these tickets. I figured we might as well give them away right now.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so if you want to go to the games tonight.
Yeah, now remember.
Or tomorrow.
These are not Grizz games. These are the Northern.
Well, this is Weber State versus Montana.
Oh, you do have Weber versus Montana. Good.
And this one is a mystery because we don't know who the winner's going to be.
Aha. Okay.
Could be Montana. In that case, these will be very valuable tickets.
Okay. All right. So if you want to win those tickets, be the first caller at 721-1290. If you're a true basketball fan, this is what they call, ladies and gentlemen, March Madness. And if I may wax editorial here for just a moment, I think it's terrible what the Big Sky Conference did. Well, try to imagine you got a brand new coach, Travis DeCure, first head coaching job, okay? Former Grizz is chosen after Wayne Tinkle left and went to Oregon State. Chose a quality recruit. Of course, Travis DeCure came in and put together a good staff and really struggled. The team really struggled the first part of the season. People were wondering, gosh, they have a lot of talent. Let's hope they can get it together. Well, they did get it together. They got it together so well, in fact, that they won the regular season of the Big Sky Conference when, in the preseason poll, the rest of the Big Sky Conference coaches picked Montana to finish 8th in the league. So what did Montana do under head coach Travis DeCure? They won the regular season title. Now, ordinarily, you would think in a situation like that any coach that can come in his first year with a bunch of brand new kids, right, and help them to coalesce into a championship-winning team, he would be a pretty good candidate for Coach of the Year, wouldn't you think? Wouldn't you think? I think I would think that. But he was passed over. I don't know about you, but that actually made me angry. And so I think what's going to happen is the Grizzlies are going to have a big-time chip on their shoulders as they face Weber State tonight. And then if they get through that game, they'll be in the championship game on Saturday night. By the way, the championship game in the Big Sky Conference for the men in the tournament, that championship game will be on ESPN. So if you're thinking about what's going to happen, get out there and support the Grizzlies tonight. And if you cheer loud enough and stamp your feet loud enough and help them win, they'll be in that championship game and they'll get some national exposure on ESPN. So there you go. How'd that go, John?
I've given away all the tickets. So if you're still ringing in, you can hang up now. But I will start picking up phones here in just a second while we play a bit.
Yeah.
Figure we might as well lighten the mood a little.
Sure, okay.
All this serious basketball stuff.
Go ahead.
I don't know. What do you want? You want to listen to what I have audio of the scene in Ferguson where 2 police officers were shot at the protest.
That's not very funny.
And I have something lighthearted, which is
let's do Jon Stewart.
Okay, Jon Stewart.
Right.
Yesterday we talked about Iran and whether or not the letter from the Republicans to the Ayatollah was over the line or crossed the bridge too far.
Yeah.
Unprecedented, maybe, if it was something.
Dr. Lawrence said it was totally inappropriate.
He didn't like it. Well, he said it wasn't helpful.
Yeah. That's what I said. He agreed with me.
And I disagreed with both of you. I think it's an example of freedom of speech.
Okay.
And if you're going to be, as the good doctor was, a proponent of freedom of speech, I don't see why we should expect other countries to think our foreign policy is not going to be freedom of speech.
But there is a tradition, John, supposedly a tradition, although it hasn't been held to very strictly, that the whole partisan bickering ends at the shore.
Yeah, that's never been true.
All right.
I mean, maybe a certain bygone eras, but I mean, actually, this is what the Jon Stewart piece is about. Democrats right now are railing on the Republicans.
Yeah.
Well, just 10 years ago, Nancy Pelosi, as I brought up in our speech yesterday,
right.
Nancy Pelosi was over there making out with Bashar al-Assad in 2007 against the wishes of
making out.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. They were. She was doing diplomacy on her own.
There you go.
And Republicans criticized her for it, right?
Yeah.
And now Republicans are saying, and it's clear, there's a double standard.
Yeah.
People are saying, you shouldn't be able to do that, and then when our guys are doing you should be able to do it.
It's treason, right?
Same thing has happened with the Democrats.
Okay.
The Democrats now are saying, hey, this is over the line, this is wrong. This has never happened, never to any president ever, that we cared about.
Okay.
And Jon Stewart makes it pretty clear that even in recent history, this is not the case.
Here we go.
I guess the real question here is context. What is the context? Is President Obama using executive agreement in an excessive or unusual manner? Well, the answer to that appears to be no way. Ronald Reagan, peace be upon him, signed over 1,500 executive agreements, including a nuclear deal with China and a hostage deal with, how do I pronounce this? Iran. I wonder if that Iran is in any way related to the one Obama's dealing with. I'm sure it's a common name in that part of the world. I know Reagan would never deal with such a loathsome regime. So, pretty clear the president is well within his constitutional prerogative. Now, congressional subversion vis-a-vis foreign policy, how new is that?
Defying White House objections to her visit, Pelosi met this week with Syrian President Bashar Assad, an attempt to open a dialogue with a leader the president has sought to isolate.
Oh, Democrats did the same thing to President Bush. You know what this means. Juxtapositional soundbite.
Juxtapositional soundbite theater.
Yeah, we do work hard to try and make this interesting. So, how did the Democrats feel about Pelosi's interference in foreign policy in 2007?
I applaud Speaker Pelosi. I have long advocated engagement with countries in the region, including Iran and Syria.
Hillary.
Time has come for members to begin to go to some of these countries and
Barbara
establish
Boxer.
their own dialogue.
Why is the Washington Post trashing Nancy Pelosi for doing basically
Chris
what
Matthews.
Jim Baker and Lee Hamilton said to do, engage the neighborhood over there in the Middle East?
And how do they feel about the Republican letter now?
Either these senators were trying to be helpful to the Iranians or harmful to the commander-in-chief.
Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein called it, quote, a highly inappropriate and unprecedented incursion.
Is this where we stand in this country, where the opposition Republicans will try anything to scuttle an American president's noble effort to avoid a war?
Both look like exactly the same people. Now, of course, clearly the situational ethics of this country's leadership is easy to catalog. But the real takeaway from this seems to be, no matter how evil our president or our Congress believes Iran to be, they would each rather deal with the Ayatollah than each other. You know, someone they can work with.
Good point. Wow.
Yeah.
And you could tell it's a cable show.
Oh, because of the beep.
Because every now and then he gets to say beep.
I wish I could say beep.
Well, we can say beep all we want.
Well, let's go into the beep and break.
Well, how about if we go to a beeping commercial?
That's good.
That's the same thing. Okay, we'll be right back. Thanks for joining us here on Talkback. 721-1290 is the number. And let's get right back to the phones. Actually, get the phones for the first time this morning and say good morning to our good friend Dave. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Yeah, good morning. About the letter. I personally have no problem with John McCain or Nancy Pelosi going to talk to foreign leaders. And at times, the State Department has used relationships with senators to do diplomacy. But in my mind, the letter was a bridge too far.
Well, why so?
Why was it too far?
Because it was an organized group. I mean, it was just not.
So what you're saying is,
I'm
cool with disorganized foreign policy out of the Senate, but when it's organized, that's when it's a problem.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Put it this way: would the Republicans have sent that letter if there had been a Republican president in office?
No, because we would assume they would probably agree with the foreign policy.
Or it's all.
Well, let me ask you this, Dave. Well, hold on. Let's put the shoe on the other foot, if you will. And if we had a Republican president, do you believe Democratic senators would have made this move?
Oh, yes. In fact, we know they did when Bush was in office.
If they sent that letter, it would have been wrong for them.
So, well, let's put it this way: nothing surprises me anymore.
Can we just back real quick? Because both you and our guest yesterday said it's wrong. Like, is it morally wrong? Is it legally wrong? Is it just a bad idea, or you disagree with it? Like, what on the spectrum of wrong is it for you?
For me, it's a bad idea for the politics of the world politics of the situation. It just interferes in our world politics.
You know what really amazed me, Dave, and I'm not sure if anybody else noticed this. It was one of the only issues in which Republicans actually found themselves agreeing with each other. Wow, way to be unified, guys!
Only 47 of them. I think that 4 bailed out.
Well, whatever. I mean, that's still, as far as I know, it's still a majority.
Yeah, that's true. So. Now, but back to your case, Dave. So you felt that it was bad because it destabilized America's foreign policy. Is that your point?
It muddied the water, and there's more involved than just the politics of the weapons. We have partners in this. Everyone is without the partners to do this negotiations. Our embargo of Iran doesn't exist. We can't do it by ourselves. And if we alienate our partners, particularly China and Russia, this embargo does no good. So
and God forbid we just get Russia upset. I mean, they've been such good friends. I mean, we're buddied up. It's not like we're riding around naked in our wrestling shirts on our horsebacks and threatening to conquer regions of the world that we said we wouldn't.
If Russia pulls out of the embargo, if China pulls out of the embargo and says, okay, we believe Iran is going to not build the bomb. We don't believe the United States anymore because they're screwing up the negotiations. Where does that leave us? That leaves us with only 2 choices.
Well, okay, what are the 2 choices?
War or just backing off, period.
All right.
No, that's not the only 2 choices. Here's the big deal. A lot of people, and I understand if you support the president's foreign policy and his social policy and domestic policy, you might not be able to see this so clearly, but, okay, net neutrality, right? We passed it. No one knew what the heck was in it. No one actually got to see the document before it was passed. In fact, it's still slowly leaking out what's actually in the bill.
Right.
Okay, that's one. Number 2, Affordable Care Act. Famous Nancy Pelosi. Got to pass it before we can see it.
Right.
Know what's in it. Iran diplomacy. Well, we don't know what's on the table. Got to pass it before we can see it. There's a certain hesitance people have after getting hit so many times in the face.
In other words, we don't trust you.
We just have a little, but as I mentioned yesterday, we know certain things are going to be in that deal.
Yeah.
One of those is going to be drawing down the strictness of the sanctions on Iran,
right.
And the other is going to be some kind of extra scrutiny of their nuclear missile program, scrutiny that's already supposed to be there because of their non-proliferation treaty agreement, which they then use to make a nuclear weapon. So, I don't know.
Well, let's get some other calls in. Other folks have opinions, and John certainly had his coffee today. David, good morning. You're on Talkback. Hi.
Good morning, guys.
What's up?
I didn't call to respond to Dave, but just in response, he was talking about partners, and I would propose that Congress or the Republicans wouldn't have sent a letter over to Iran if we wouldn't have dropped our original partner, who was Israel. So I'll just leave that for people to ponder.
All right, David, thank you.
But that's not why I called.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
all right.
no. Yeah. Well, I agree with you, Peter, on the basketball coach. But the reason I called was the thing that gets under my skin is the mountain lion reaching record riderships.
Oh, mountain lion,
give stuff away.
Right.
And pretty much any business in town that gives stuff away is going to reach record proportions. I don't really think
I hope that is true. I hope that is true because we are sending this signal out to everybody. Let everybody know this radio station is absolutely free to listen to.
Exactly,
absolutely free.
Right?
Record listenership this month. I'm hoping for it. I'm hoping for it.
The private sector people would be out of business if they did that. And then the grants that Mountain Lion gets back, they probably are only getting 25 cents of every dollar.
Well, just an example, David, I'm sitting next to one of Missoula's most prominent business people who owns a restaurant, and we're going to be meeting him here in a minute. But I can imagine he's ready to start giving all of his food away if the government can come in and say, we'll support you.
Yesterday, but I don't think they were giving it away. And I have nothing against Mountain Lion. I think it's a great service, but I do believe it should stand on its own.
All right, David, thanks.
That's all. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate the call. Thank you. We're up against a break. Tyler, we're going to get you on here in a moment. We have 2 lines open. And then starting at 9, we're going to talk about Hellgate Elementary.
That's right.
We have officials right here in the studio that are ready.
Very official.
To rock and
roll. One
roll.
of them has a tie on.
Wow.
And this is radio, so we dappered up big time.
And he's got some blueprints to show us, which is really cool.
We have never had blueprints in the studio before.
Right up against the microphone here.
That I know of.
These guys are going, let's run. Let's hurry. Let's get the heck out of here. We'll be right back. And we're back on Talkback. The number is 721-1290. And we just have a short segment here before we get to the top of the hour. And Tyler has been waiting very patiently. Tyler, go ahead.
Good morning. My comments this morning about the letter.
Sure.
Yesterday, early morning, I think it was right around 9 o'clock, I heard Sari Ovitich come on at the top of the hour, and she called it like, I assume like you guys at the radio station saw it, that letter was meant for the president. She had an interesting
those were my words, but she was reading it.
John wrote them,
The line I wrote was, judging from President or Senator Daines' comments, it seems like the letter was written more for the president than for Iran. Because when Daines released his statement, very little about it had to do about Iran. It was all about President Obama and what he should think about the letter.
Right. Well, it was an interesting catch that you made. And I never read the letter. I'm reading about the fallout of the letter. But the one thing that everybody needs to remember is that what they said is true. I mean, you can't deny the fact that what they said is true. It's not like they
How do you know it's true if you haven't read the letter?
Because they said that they instructed the Iranians that the president cannot or that Congress cannot be struck to the hold of the president. It's like the non-proliferation agreement, right? Ukraine wasn't supposed to get, or Ukraine turned over their nuclear weapons in order, we agreed to protect them. And when Russia took Crimea, we didn't do anything about it. We didn't do anything to protect them, didn't do anything to help it. Why? Because we're not bound by the rules of previous presidents, basically, right? I mean, we are, but we didn't do anything.
They were all afraid to, really.
Right. So Senate is saying
they figured Crimea wasn't worth it.
Crimea River.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tyler.
The Senate is saying to Iran, "Hey, if you make this treaty, it has to be done with Congress, not just the president." And that's true. I hate to say it, but it's true.
Well, it is true, and that a lot of the letter is basic civics 101 on how treaties are formed in America. Yeah. The thing that really got me, though, with the last paragraph of what you giving me the funny face.
No, just wait less than a minute.
See you later, Tyler.
Thanks, Tyler. Go ahead.
The bottom paragraph of it talks about how, well, President Obama is going to be gone in 2 years, and senators can last 6 years, and we can be here forever. Basically, like, they might be in office for a long, long time.
And, of course, it was interesting, the Ayatollah's reaction to the letter as well. He said, well, obviously the leadership in America is crumbling and is about to become, like that. What do you expect him to say? Gee, thanks for the letter.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome.
Let's be pen pals, Congress of the United States.
We're going to take a little break, come right back. When we come back, we'll be shifting gears and talking about Hellgate Elementary and their plans for the future. Of course, we have officials right here in studio taking your phone calls. We'll be right back. Okay, we are definitely shifting gears here now. John King's over there. Good morning, John.
Good morning again, Peter.
Yes, I'm Peter Christian. Joining us in studio this morning, we're going to go local, which we really, what this show is really all about is local issues. And we're going to talk about schools. And just before we introduce our guests, there is a misconception that Missoula School District 1, the big school district, encompasses all the schools in Missoula. Well, it doesn't. There are several different districts in the Missoula area. The biggest one, of course, is School District 1, but there's also Target Range, there's Lolo, and, of course, the folks here at Hellgate Elementary.
What school district number are you folks?
4.
We're number 4. We're number 4.
But we have Doug Reisig with us. He's the Hellgate Elementary Superintendent and the chair of the school board, Tom McLaughlin. Both those gentlemen are here. And fellas, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting us.
You bet. Now, Doug, let's talk for a second. For those who don't know, and maybe have just started listening to the program or are new to Missoula, tell us a little bit about Hellgate Elementary. Right now, it's one school, and your school, you have your own school district, and how that all came about.
Well, it's an interesting story with Hellgate Elementary. We're one of the oldest school districts in the state of Montana. We actually began in 1869.
Wow!
It began as a one-room schoolhouse.
I was there.
for 16 farm kids with one teacher.
You still have my dunce cap in the corner.
I think we could find it. Since that time, the district has grown to over 43 acres. We have over 1,500 kids, over 160 employees working at the school. We are the largest independent elementary school district in the state of Montana. And we're very proud of the educational product that we have. We're very proud of the kids that we have out at the school. And, of course, the school board just does a wonderful job leading the way for us. But that's the history of our school district and how we've grown over time. And not a lot of people know where Hellgate Elementary is even located, for heaven's sakes, on the west end of town. But it is a growing area of the Missoula community, and it's a growing school district. I've been there 15 years, and we have seen considerable growth during that time.
Now, that growth is kind of what both I've heard from, at least from Tom when I spoke with him the other week. That was one of the elements behind this motivation to maybe develop a new high school, at least consider it. And that has not had a warm welcome from School District 1 Superintendent Alex Apostle, who I've also spoken with on this show. Actually, we did last month, and we probably will next week again. He sees the idea of a high school as a threat. And I wanted to have, if you could, give the other side. Why would this be a beneficial thing for Missoula residents?
Well, I'll talk about, for Hellgate Elementary in particular, as to why we're even into this situation with Senate Bill 107. As I said, for 15 years I've been there, and every other year when the legislature's back in session, there's always been a push from Hellgate Elementary. Let's go see what we can do about getting the law changed so that our people could at least vote for the idea of creating a high school. As you may recall, in 1993, a moratorium was established in the state of Montana by the legislature, which precluded school districts from even considering the creation of a new high school. And so,
now, do you know why that was?
I believe in 1993 that was put in with the consolidation effort that was going across the state of Montana at that time. In 1997, though the moratorium still existed, it was kind of lessened for Big Sky, Montana, for the Ophir High School area because of the situations taking those kids to Bozeman. And so it was modified to allow Big Sky, Montana to create their own high school. So Senate Bill 107, which is the current bill, that is being considered just from a historical perspective. 2 years ago, in the 2013 legislative session, a similar bill actually made it through the House of Representatives and did not even get considered in the Senate for a technicality reason. Mm-hmm. The bill now has come back. It has made it through the Senate. It is now going to the House of Representatives in hope that it will pass that chamber and the governor can get to decide yes or no whether he wants to veto it or sign it. But there are a couple reasons why people out in the Hellgate Elementary District want this. Obviously, there are some people that want the continuation of the Hellgate Elementary program from the elementary into the high school because they are very pleased with the academic program that is provided, the child-centered program that is provided. There are people that desperately want a smaller high school experience for their kids. Our high school would be, when we say smaller, it's a relative term, because our high school, if we had one, would be between 600 and 700 students. If you look at the studies, the optimum size for a high school is between 600 and 900. So we'd fall right in that window. We would become the fourth largest Class A high school in the state of Montana, for heaven's sakes, just with our current enrollment that we have. So there are people that want that smaller experience. We also have a group of people out in our community who are truly interested in the idea of local control. If you look at the Montana Constitution, Article 10, Section 8, it does say that local high schools, the supervision and direction of local school districts, are under the direction of a locally elected school board. Well, our locally elected school board doesn't even have the option to provide supervision and direction on the expansion from K-8 to K-12 because of the moratorium that's in place. And then lastly, of course, there are some people, and if you look at studies, this bears out over educational studies, that if in fact you put a high school out on that west end of Missoula, the property values for residential people as well as businesses increases the value of their property.
I would say, as a former realtor, for a short stint, I did know that in my short time there, of the 12 or 14 families that I helped find homes, at least 2 of them requested being in the Hellgate Elementary area because of Hellgate Elementary.
Right.
Thank you.
Which is an interesting feature. Now, this is 5 years ago or so. But, if that were the case for the elementary, one might assume that could be the case for the high school.
We're up against a break, and I have a couple of, I think, really important questions to ask you about if let's say the legislature says, yeah, go ahead, you can do whatever you want, you can have this vote. I want to know who's going to pay for it. I mean, is it going to be just you, or is it going to be spread out all over? Because what people are really confused about is, well, gee, it's nice if you can have your own high school, but why should I, who live in School District 1, have to pay for it? So we'll come right back. By the way, all 3 lines are open, and I know Doug and Tom are not shy. They're happy to take your calls and visit with you. 721-1290 is our number. We have all 3 lines open, and we'll be right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. John King, I'm Peter Christian. Joining us in studio, Hellgate Elementary Superintendent Doug Reisig and Chair of the School Board, Tom McLaughlin. Go, John.
Yeah, during the break, we had a question, I think a very pertinent one, because we were actually joking about this last week. What are they going to call, if you have a new Hellgate High School, what would you call it? We've had recommendations like Hellgatier High School, Hellgatiest High School, Hellgate Part 2, Hellgate Back with a Vengeance. But what do you think? Oh, what would be the name of this high school?
Well, or is it premature to say?
It is premature to say, and we would certainly leave that up to the constituents living within the boundaries of Hellgate Elementary.
They get to pick their own name. How cool is that?
Welcome to Joe Montana High School.
Okay. My question now, and it's quite serious. Because we keep hearing about this, and gee, wouldn't it be a great idea? And you can vote on it, and you could pass it, and you could plan it out. I see you have some blueprints there, and the things that your dreams about what this high school would be. But who's going to pay for it?
Well, that's a great question, Peter. And there is a misconception out there that if in fact we did have the opportunity to vote to create our own high school, that cost would be then borne by the entire greater Missoula area. And that's just simply not the case. The Hellgate Elementary voters would be the ones that would vote. They would be the ones to vote to tax themselves the people living within the boundaries of Hellgate Elementary. So if you lived within the greater Missoula area and Hellgate Elementary passed a bond to build a high school, the cost of building that high school would not be passed on to you living outside the boundaries of Hellgate Elementary. Now, you can make an existential argument that, well, yeah, because you're taking kids away from our school, our taxes are going to go up, so yes, we are going to end up having to pay for it. But the actual cost of building the facility is going to be borne by the taxpayer living within the boundaries of Hellgate Elementary.
Let's go into that existential argument, because that's the one that happens all the time.
Sure.
Basically, the way that it works, students that go to a high school bring with them a certain amount of funds that come in from the state and federal government, right? So if students are going to your high school, for the other high schools, the current Hellgate the first, I guess we'll call it, Sentinel and Big Sky, they're going to have to, because they would presumably be having less students than before, they're going to have to spend more money to have the same standard of education that they have right now. And so what has been argued by, I've listened to union members argue this, I've listened to Alex Apostle argue this, what's going to happen is you're going to have to cut teachers, and you're going to have to cut staff, and you're going to have to cut programs at these other schools in order to make the budget balance. And I wanted to hear whether you think that's a necessary thing, or whether it's overblown, or whether or not that's just part of the process. If you could go into your case for...
Or is it propaganda?
Well, good question, John. All I can tell you right now is I'm not the superintendent of MCPS, and I don't know all the budgetary workings that they do at their school, but I do know that Senate Bill 107 provides for an averaging of enrollment to ease the transition of students out of the MCPS school district into the new Hellgate Elementary high school area that would ease that fiscal impact over time to allow MCPS to be able to adjust their budgetary operations to reflect the new reality of less students. I've heard they're going to lose 125 positions, and taxes are going to go up exponentially to a much higher rate. I would suggest to you that it's easy to say that at this point in time, but if you actually looked at the budgetary adjustments that could take place, I'm not so sure that those fears of draconian measures would actually materialize, especially because of the time that is allowed to prepare for this. For example, if our people even decided that they would like to tax themselves to have a new high school, we would not even be into a high school facility until school year 2018-2019, which gives plenty of time for preparation in terms of planning as to what we are going to do for our programs.
I just think it's funny that they're expecting taxes to go up exponentially. I mean, can you imagine the size of the bond issues?
Now, I wanted to ask you this. Let's say when School District 1 runs a bond levy, or a levy bond, or whatever they call it, a levy election to raise funds, let's say a technology levy, all right? And for some reason I had it in my mind that everybody in all the school districts was voting on that, but it's only those who live within School District 1. Is that correct?
No. We vote on that as well. Not on the elementary. If they offer a technology levy, in your example, on the elementary side, we that live within the boundaries of Hellgate Elementary, we do not vote on that.
Okay.
The high school component, however, is voted on by people living in Lolo, Target Range, Hellgate Elementary, Bonner, Clinton, across Missoula County that are all part of the Missoula County Public School High School District.
Right.
So we all vote on that.
Okay, so that's good to know.
Do you know why there's a difference there?
Because those guys don't have their own high schools.
Gotcha.
When you look at the MCPS school board, I believe there's 11 members on that school board. Some of those school board members vote only on high school issues. Some of those board members, I believe 7 of them, vote on elementary and high school issues because they represent MCPS elementary as well as MCPS high school. The boundaries of MCPS, they're not contiguous. The elementary boundaries, the high school boundaries aren't the same. And so we get, right now, out of that 11-member board, we get 1 vote out of 11. So if there's anything that concerns us out at Hellgate Elementary, our voice is pretty small in terms of being able to impact direction with the MCPS high school program. This is another driving point for people in our district. If we had our own high school, people living within the boundaries of Hellgate Elementary would have 7 out of 7 votes.
Wow.
Because we have 7 members on our board.
And that's local control.
That's local control.
Okay, we're gonna take a little break. And Pete and Larry, I promise when we get back, you guys will be first up, and we have one line open. I want to say thanks to Doug and Tom for both. We haven't heard from Tom yet. We're assuming he's here, but he's a really tall guy, so it's hard for the words to come all the way down to the microphone. So we're coming right back after this. This is Talk Back, and it's Thursday, and I'm Peter Christian along with John King. We have guests in the studio, Doug Reisig and Tom McLaughlin, representing Hellgate Elementary, talking about expansion and just the opportunity to vote on expansion. They don't even have that right now. I promise we get to the phones right away. Pete, thank you so much for holding, sir. You're on.
Good morning. I just want to comment on the history of the moratorium in '93.
Yes, sir.
I was teaching on a High Line at that time, and one of the principal reasons it came in, to my understanding as a teacher up there, we had 3 schools in my particular area and others within 8 to 12 miles of each other. We had 3 superintendents drawing well over 100,000 apiece in their staffs. Principal and vice principals at each of the schools drawing just under 100,000. And then the teachers, and then the respective sports teams, travel costs for the sports teams, heat and utilities for the schools, and the only benefactors up here were the administrators, and the students and the teachers were taking the hit. And now, since then, some of us have combined up there. And in my understanding, your school facility would be about 3 miles from an existing high school, not 12 miles. And you'd have athletic field costs, gymnasium costs, facility costs, travel costs for the teams, and so
which would be borne by the people in that district.
Well, let's not say district. Let's say the taxpayers.
Well, the taxpayers in that district.
Yeah, exactly.
But that would be their choice.
Regardless of the district.
But that would be their choice, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a duplication of costs and efforts and tax dollars. And I don't know if the mayor down in your city is going to have enough left over for any of us. But I just wanted to give you an idea of the moratorium.
Well, hey, thanks for your call, Pete. And I would like you to address because this is something I brought up when we were starting to talk about this. One of my hesitations is, I don't want to pay for more bureaucracy. And is this just a duplication of services we already have afforded for students in Missoula County? What would be the benefits of another administration here in town?
Well, I think if you look at the current MCPS administrative scaffolding that they have right now with a superintendent and then the 3 education czars or regional directors, whatever they're called, and then they get down to the building level. Obviously, if students were removed from that mix on the high school level, there would be a reduction in administrative personnel, or at least theoretically there could be a reduction if you look at accreditation standards in the state of Montana. As obviously, if we had a high school, we'd have to have a principal, we'd have to have assistant principal. That is just by accreditation standards. But there would be theoretically a corresponding reduction with less students as we transfer over. But again, that's a decision that MCPS would have to make. That's not a decision that Hellgate Elementary would make for them. What we would do, and Peter mentioned it with the last call with Pete, is that it is a local decision by the local taxpayers living within the local Hellgate Elementary School District if they want to tax themselves to have that opportunity. And I think what we've always said when we've talked to people about this is it's a value judgment. Do I want to pay those taxes for this or do I not want to? And that's all we're asking for.
Do you mind if I have you give the sales pitch for that group? Just pretend, if you would, that we're on the radio and only people in your district are listening and you're trying to say, these are the values, these are the benefits of this school and why you should vote for it.
Certainly.
So go ahead and tell us what those are.
Number one, I would think that if, in fact, you had your own high school within the boundaries of Hellgate Elementary, you would be able to continue with the academic program and the academic philosophy that is based on non-negotiable principles that has guided elementary since 1869 and has placed Hellgate Elementary as one of the leading educational institutions, not only in Missoula, but considered across the state of Montana.
Okay, go ahead. I was going to interrupt, but I But I won't.
Secondly, I believe that if you provided that opportunity, you would have a greater sense of control as to the focus and direction of the decisions made that guide the educational program of your school district. I know after the 15 years at Hellgate Elementary that the Hellgate Elementary School Board is guided by three principles. Number one, all of their decisions are educationally defensible. All of their decisions are socially responsible, and all of their decisions are fiscally responsible. And I think if you had a local high school where your local dollars could be spent locally, you would have a far greater say in the direction and the focus and the program of what you would have for your high school students. And lastly, again, I think that if you look at what it does for the people living within the boundaries of Hellgate Elementary, whether you have kids in the school or not, if you are a homeowner or if you are a business person, there is no doubt that by creating a high school and increasing the district from a K-8 to a K-12, there is no doubt that it will have a positive impact on the values of your property and the value of your business.
All right. I must ask. I must ask because people have the assumption that kindergarten is kindergarten, no matter where you go. First grade is first grade, no matter where you go. Now, the state has accepted Common Core standards. I want to know if Hellgate Elementary has, as a separate school district, are you able to put together your own curriculum, your own, because the things, like you said, since 1867, you've had a consistently, what you call an excellent record in school. So tell me about that.
We are able to put together our own academic program. Obviously, there are accreditation standards that guide us by the Montana Office of Public Instruction and the Montana Board of Public Education that we have to meet. But even with Common Core, and what we tell people that come and talk to us about Common Core and concerns about Common Core is that those are the standards that the state has placed on all schools to meet, but how we get there is our decision. Hellgate Elementary has its own way of meeting the academic programs and the academic mandates and the academic goals that we have for our students. For example, MCPS has a way that they meet their academic programs on the high school level. There are 14 Class AA high schools in the state of Montana. 3 of them are here in Missoula. The other 11 don't always and don't follow the MCPS model. There are over 22 Class A high schools in the state of Montana, all quality educational institutions that have their own flavor, their own direction, their own focus on how they meet the mandates for their kids to prepare their kids to be successful in college, vocational education, the world of work, the military. Each individual school district has its own way that it meets it. MCPS has a way that they want to do it. Hellgate Elementary has a way that we want to do it.
A couple comments. Neither of them are really questions, so they'll go quick.
Let's get that, and then we'll go to a break.
Okay. Jeannie says, I don't blame the Hellgate Elementary School District for wanting their own high school. MCPS is always in chaos, both at the high school level and the elementary level. MCPS does not spend taxpayer money wisely and do not budget for basic educational expenses. Our family experienced huge turmoil and heartbreak when MCPS closed 3 schools in the Rattlesnake and East Missoula areas in 2004, and it has been found to be a very expensive decision. Good luck on your new high school. That's from Jeannie. Kelly says, yes, they have a right to their own school, and there will just be more and more growth in their district in the future. Good luck, Hellgate High School District.
Or elementary district, yeah, whatever.
Well,
Okay.
there wasn't a high school. Right?
Yeah, the as yet unnamed, which would be a great name for a school. Welcome to Give Me an A, Give Me an S. Never mind.
The Phantom, Hellgate 2, the Phantom Menace.
Larry, Marilyn, and Catherine are coming up when we come right back after this break. This is Talk Back, and we're rocking right along here this morning. Doug Reisig, the Hellgate Elementary Superintendent, Tom McLaughlin, President of the school board, also with us. I promise we get right to the phones and just burn through these calls. Larry, first of all, thank you for holding. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, good morning. Back in the mid to late 90s, a growth plan was developed called the Y. Mullen Plan, and I think it went from west of Reserve Street and north of Mullen Road and out towards the interstate and out to the Y. And I think there was a potential for something like over 2,000 dwelling units, and I wondered if a high school in the Hellgate area was included in that growth plan, and also if you do get this bill passed and do have a vote on it, would the commercial units and industrial units in the industrial park out here have a vote in that?
Hey, Larry, thanks for the call. So, Doug?
Larry, good question. We actually participated in the Y. Mullen Growth Plan. I got the job at Hellgate Elementary in 2000, and so that plan was still in progress, and the development of that was still in progress. You're absolutely right. It did call for thousands of units to be built out in the Hellgate Elementary area, and to fortify that belief, we passed a $13 million bond in 2007 to construct additional classroom space. The construction was actually completed in 2009, that we believed would take care of our needs in the Hellgate Elementary area for the next 10 to 12 years. 5 years removed from that, we're packed already with students coming in.
I think it's appropriate now to give us an explanation of the growth. We've mentioned growth, but can you give us some raw numbers? What kind of growth you're seeing in that district?
Yeah, when I got the job in 2000, we were a little over, I believe, 1,200 students. We're almost at 1,500 right now. Our growth, when we built out, we were built out to accommodate between 1,500 and 1,600, so we're pushing right up against that limit. Just recently, the Missoulian had an article where it said the population in the Missoula area is 112,000 people, and within the next 15 years, it's expected to go to 134,000 or 135,000 people. When you look at the Hellgate Elementary area and the open space that's there and the wonderful agricultural land that still exists there, you have to ask yourself, where is that growth going to take place? And clearly, a large share of it's going to take place on the west end of Missoula, and it's going to take place out in the Hellgate Elementary area. So the growth is coming, and what the school board, Tom and his cohorts on the school board have always tried to do, whether it be for elementary expansion or for the potential of high school expansion, is to be proactive and look down the road. What do we have to do to position ourselves so that we're not blindsided or caught behind the 8 ball in trying to provide quality educational experiences for our kids? Now, the other part of Larry's question is dealing with the industrial and the commercial industries that exist within Hellgate Elementary. And I would tell you, Larry, in relation to that, when that vote is taken, it is taken by the people who live within the boundaries of Hellgate Elementary. I don't think an individual business has a special vote in terms of whether they are for or against. Obviously, if the business owner lives within the boundaries, that business owner would have a say. But the interesting about, and we're very supportive of industrial growth within the corridors at Hellgate Elementary, because having industrial growth eases the pressure on residential homeowners. And if you recall, in looking back at the history of Hellgate Elementary, in the early 1970s, Hellgate Elementary actually approached MCPS to join with MCPS.
Wow.
To stop being an independent elementary, but to become part of MCPS. And that overture was turned down because at that time, it wasn't a highly valued area. It was basically farmland, open space. Those of us that were going to the University of Montana in the early 70s remember Reserve Street, or what was Reserve Street at that point, maybe a dirt road, and there was a lot of open space. So things have changed since the early 70s to now with the industrial development in our school district, and correspondingly, our taxable valuations have increased.
Let's get back to the phones. Marilyn, you're up. Go ahead.
Good morning. You may have already answered my question while I was on hold, and what you said sounded really, really good. I guess maybe a little bit of the question I still have is, at the very beginning of the show, and you just mentioned the word again, independent, could you define that a little bit better for us? It sounds really good to me.
Okay, thanks, Marilyn.
Marilyn, good question. We're an independent elementary district, and what that means is, yes, we are still governed by the rules and regulations, the accreditation standards that guide all educational practices for Montana public schools. Those rules are put out by the Montana Office of Public Instruction as well as the Montana the Board of Public Ed. But we, as an independent elementary district, we have our own school board, we have our own facilities, we have our own focus and direction of how we try to address academic programs. Our decisions are not controlled by the MCPS school board or any other school board other than the 7 members that are locally elected by the local voters living within the boundaries of Hellgate Elementary. And they set the standard and the direction that govern all of the operations in the school district. And they set that standard by understanding the culture of our school district, which is different from cultures of other school districts. Every school district has its own culture and has its own flavor and how it approaches things. And again, I think the conservative nature of the Hellgate Elementary School District has guided the decision-making of the school board so that they make sure that we can have the right academic programs, we can make sure we have acceptable school facilities for kids, and that we provide a quality educational experience.
Okay, we're going to take a little break, come right back, and Catherine, we'll get your call on. We have 2 lines open. We have some Facebook comments as well, John, and we're coming right back. This is a great segment, but remember, we're only on for about another 18 minutes, so if you have a question or a comment, get it in now. Hey, we're back on Talkback, and time is rapidly running out. A real quick question before we get to our Facebook comment. Okay, let's say I live in the St. Thomas area, in
Linda Vista area.
Yeah, Linda Vista, Miller Creek, whatever. And I've got a kid, and I want him to go to Hellgate Elementary because I think it's a really cool school. Can I call you up and say, hey, Doug, can I give you the super secret handshake and get my kid into your school?
No.
Oh!
You can't. Hellgate Elementary is one of the few school districts in Montana that's actually a closed school district. For your child to go to school at Hellgate Elementary, you have to live within the boundaries of the Hellgate Elementary School District. And the reason I point that out as passionately as I do is because we actually have to enlist legal counsel to investigate people who fraudulently list their addresses so their children can get enrolled at Hellgate Elementary. And we have to investigate that because we could potentially have, if we had our an open enrollment, we could have between 200 to 300 additional students trying to get into the elementary system right now. And it's not because I'm there. It is because we have a quality educational system, quality teachers, quality administrators, a very wonderful school board that manages the facility and sets a tone and direction for the rest of us. But that's just the reality of it. That's why we're closed.
So when school's in session, does Tom stand outside the front with a flaming sword back and forth?
No.
Make sure.
But what Tom does do, and the other 6 members on the school board joining Tom, is they make sure to let us know this is the way business is going to be done here, and this is what we want for our kids. Now get it done.
Okay, let's get Catherine on the line. Catherine, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Okay, good morning. Hellgate Elementary District encompasses exactly where to where. That's the first part. Second, people in the Hellgate Elementary District pay bonds for District 1 high school, do they not? And
yes,
if so, since I don't think those bonds are separated between elementary and high school, they're also paying then for the elementary services that they don't receive. Am I right or wrong on that? And also, have you at all thought of legally consolidating with the other districts, like the area up in Butler Creek or Target Range or, Linda Vista? If not, why not, at least on the high school level?
Okay. Thanks, Catherine.
Catherine, good questions. I'll start with the bonds if I can first, and then I'll get into the boundaries. Because MCPS, as I understand, because MCPS is an elementary district and a high school district, the elementary bonds are not voted on or supported by the taxpayers of the Hellgate Elementary School District because we're not part of the elementary district at MCPS. The high school bonds, however, we are obligated and committed to paying on those. And one of the things that in the Senate bill that's currently being addressed, and it's one of the things that the 3 large independent elementary districts, being Hellgate Elementary, East Helena, and Lockwood and Billings, all supported, was our legal, moral, ethical obligation that even if our people decided to consider having a high school and then building their own high school, we would continue to pay the bonded indebtedness that has already been incurred because that was voted on and approved while we were members of the MCPS high school district. That is to say, Catherine, that this $70 million bond issue that's coming up in November on the part of MCPS, if our people decide, if this bill goes through and our people are allowed to just consider the idea of looking at a high school, not actually taxing themselves at this point, but just to look at the idea, we would not be obligated to pay that $70 million bond issue if it is successful in November. So that's a huge consideration factors for the people that live out in the boundaries of Hellgate Elementary, that if they even voted to consider, we now break away from that bonded indebtedness. In the future, we're still obligated for the past bonded indebtedness. As far as our boundaries, we go Russell Street west, Clark Fork River north. We go all the way out to Harper's Bridge on Mullen Road and butt right up to the Frenchtown School District, and we go all the way up to Snow Bowl in the Grant Creek area. That's basically the geographic boundaries that we have. Obviously, the airport's kind of a dividing line where we butt right up. Sonoma Avenue is a dividing line between DeSmet and Hellgate Elementary.
So basically, I don't have to buy a house right behind Home Depot just to get into your school.
You do not.
Okay.
There's plenty of spaces and development going on all the time, Peter.
All right. So let's see who's up next. Okay, we're going to real quick. Sean, you have about a minute and a half. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Hi. I had a quick question. I mentioned that you said that there was not going to be an increase in taxes if we opened up this high school for anybody but the people that are in the district. And I just wonder how that's possible when you're going to take a huge chunk of people that are already paying taxes in the current high schools, not to raise the tax bill for everybody else. When you throw another high school in the mix, when there's only so many people that live in Missoula.
Sean, that's a good question. If MCPS, if we were allowed to have our own high school out in the Hellgate Elementary district, and if MCPS continue to operate with the budgetary operations that they have right now, which reflect the fact that they have 3,600 kids in their high school, then I predict there would be a huge increase. But when you don't have 3,600 kids in your high school system, you have 3,100 or 3,000, your program adjustments would have to correspondingly take place. I mean, I think that's just simple business sense that I would not need to have the same operating costs for 3,000 kids that I need to have the operating costs for 3,600 kids.
Unless those costs are administrative bureaucrats you don't plan on firing.
Yeah.
Well, and again, we even talked about this at our last board meeting on Monday night, because one of the things that came out of the Billings Gazette was that, well, these schools that want this, what about the technology levies? What about adult ed? Well, MCPS likes to look at what the tax burden is on an individual that owns a $200,000 home. If you remove, for example, on their technology levy, that's a little over $1 million right now in the high school side. If you remove Hellgate Elementary out of that mix, so the Hellgate Elementary taxpayer is not paying that anymore, that $200,000 tax burden a month increases by about 22 cents. For an individual taxpayer. The adult ed increases about 17 cents a month, and even the building reserve that someday will go by the wayside on the high school side of Hellgate of MCPS increases 22 cents a month. So that's about a $7 a month increase for an individual whose home is appraised or assessed to a market value of $200,000. So would there be I can't sit here right now and tell you there would be absolutely no tax increase, but again, that would be a decision and a direction that MCPS would have to deal with.
We have a question on Facebook from Champ. He says, if this fails, do they plan on bringing it back every 6 months until they get approval? And I will add to this a little bit of political reality is the way I see it. I'm just going to be kind of frank about this. Yes, it made it through the Senate. Wasn't able to do that last time. The House is almost certainly going to pass it. But when it gets to Governor Bullock's desk, I think that there's going to be a veto. And the reason why is to be a powerful Democrat in the state of Montana, you really have to have your ear to the teachers union. And the teachers union does not like this plan. I think he's going to end up vetoing it. And so if that happens, what then?
Well, first of all, let me say I have great respect for Governor Bullock. And it would be a tough decision that he would have to wrestle with and make the call on. We've been very upfront with the taxpayers that have come. We've been discussing this for months now at our monthly school board meeting, and the people that have come to our meetings, and even our public forum that we had in November in anticipation of this bill coming forward. We have been very upfront that this basically is the one shot that Hellgate Elementary will ever have to have its own high school. The reason I say that, John, is because with this $70 million bond issue coming down the line for MCPS, they have a bonding capacity of almost $130 million. They're asking for $70 million in November. That's not going to stop.
That's just for high school.
That's just for the high school. $88 million on the elementary side. But in 2 to 3 years down the road, they're going to ask for more. And 2 to 3 years down the road, they're going to ask for more. And I respect the decisions that they have to make from a facility infrastructure standpoint. But we cannot, at Hellgate Elementary, financially support the costs incurred with the passage of a $70 million bond issue by the MCPS High School District, and then the costs that would be incurred by trying to support our own high school. It's fiscally impossible and irresponsible. So this is our one shot.
So what you're saying is these bonds that are coming up, Hellgate Elementary area is like pushing them out to the rest of Missoula.
What we're saying is that we want to have the ability to make the decision locally as to what is in the best interest of our kids within our local Hellgate Elementary School District.
Okay, let's get Lucille on. Good morning, Lucille. You're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Good morning. I have just one question, and that is, what is the projected attendance in this new high school?
Thank you, Lucille.
That's a good question. And our enrollment projections, again, if we just currently used our enrollment we have right now with our 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students that theoretically would be freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, we would have approximately 607 to 615 students in our high school right now. Our projections indicate for the next 10 years out that enrollment projection, if we got every one of those kids, we would go up to about 700 students and then stay pretty consistent at 700. Given the current development pattern that exists within the boundaries of Hellgate Elementary right now, with not only single-family dwelling units, but multiple family dwelling units that are going up at a rapid rate.
Okay, let's get as many calls in as we can here for the top of the hour. Mike, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for Mr. Reisig. Number one, is the campus big enough the way it is to support a grade school and a high school?
We would have to buy additional property, Mike, and interestingly enough, Montana doesn't have any standard for how much acreage you need for a high school, for heaven's sake. So we've had to go out and investigate our sister states that border Montana who do have standards, and we would need to come up with, we believe, a high school campus of between 28 and 30 acres.
Okay, then do you have to have a whole new administration for that, or can grade school administration run like the high school?
Our elementary principals would continue to operate in the elementary that they do right now, which meets the state's accreditation standards and the mandates that we have. I am the one superintendent that they would have. I would be the elementary and high school superintendent, so they wouldn't have to hire another one.
You'd be really busy.
I would be really busy, but we would have to hire, based on state standards, we would have to hire a principal and an assistant principal based on our enrollments.
Okay, the other question I have is, can somebody from Seeley Lake, I know there's a lot of kids go to Hellgate High School that should be going to Big Sky. Can the kids from outside our district come to Hellgate, the new Hellgate High School?
No, sir, they cannot. You have to live within the boundaries of Hellgate Elementary.
Right. All right, thanks for the call. And Rick, go ahead. We got about 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Good morning, John, Peter, and you, sir. I have one question. My adorable granddaughter goes to a wonderful little school called the Smet,
right,
in Missoula. Is that in the boundaries of the proposed Hellgate Elementary District or whatever? I don't even know what I'm saying here, but
you're making sense.
Would she go to that new high school?
Rick, right now, no, she cannot, because DeSmet is its own elementary district with its own boundaries. There has always been talk over the years that I've been there about the possibility of DeSmet and Hellgate Elementary joining because they're next door neighbors. But right now, DeSmet is its own district and Hellgate Elementary is its own district.
Okay, we have about a minute and a half. So
we have a call from a listener. They want to know if there's any considerations with flight paths in the airport with you being out there. Is that something that comes up frequently?
Absolutely. And
what?
And Mr. McLaughlin and I, as well as the architectural and engineering and construction firms that we're working with right now, we have actually met with the Missoula International Airport directors and assistant director. We have talked about our plans. We've talked about locations. We've talked about partnerships between the school and the airport, and we're fine.
Okay, we have 1 minute left.
Yes, sir.
So if folks want to get in touch with you to get more input, or if there's a meeting or whatever they could attend, tell us what's going on.
Sure. On our Hellgate Elementary website, if you just go to the Hellgate Elementary website, you'll see my contact information. Again, at the office, my contact information is 728-5626. Once this bill, if it does become a reality, we will have numerous public forums and public meetings to try to explain, because again, if it becomes a reality, the only vote we are looking for right now is just the idea to consider the prospect. Doesn't involve any money.
Right.
We're not asking you to increase your taxes.
Right.
Do you just want to consider looking at the option? And if you do, then we'll get into, okay, let's look at what the design could be. Let's look at what the cost could be.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, Peter. John, thank you. I've enjoyed it.
You bet. I'd love to have you and Alex on together.
That would be fun.
Kind of fun.
Get the gloves on.
Alex does a wonderful job.
Open phones tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.